give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
Yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the poor and where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind. Caress the mind and question justify when you and God in time are best aligned.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent in L.A. Live in L.A. Holding it down with you in afternoon drive time. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. All you got to do is type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ. And there you have it. There I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. It's just that simple. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. And with that, it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. If you're tracking your credit report closely, you may want to lean in on this one. A rule lifting medical debt from credit scores was voided. What will that change? Well, the Washington Post is reporting an estimated one-fifth of U.S. households have medical debt on their credit reports, a burden that makes it more expensive for them to buy homes or finance new cars, and in some cases, more difficult to obtain a job. A recent court decision has now kept that system in place. That's right, a Biden-era rule announced just last summer, but never put into effect, sought to forbid credit reporting agencies, including Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, you know who I'm talking about. It sought to forbid these credit reporting agencies from using medical debt over $500 on the detailed credit history reports that lenders use to judge creditworthiness. Well, amid opposition from the industry groups, no surprise there, and the Trump administration, guess what? A federal judge has struck down the rule. They struck it down just this month. Now, you might be wondering, as a consumer, what should you know moving forward? Well, you should check out this Washington Post article, really dig into all of those things, including why was the medical debt rule overturned, what happens next if you carry medical debt, how many people are affected, how medical debt affects your credit score, and how you can improve your credit score. And so check out that article brought to you by the Washington Post to dig into those questions. But know that medical debt will now impact your credit scores. The Biden-Harris administration did everything they could to keep that from happening, but industry groups And the Trump administration thought otherwise. Another consequence of the election. Moving along, the hubbub. Have you seen all the hubbub about Laverne Cox? The Griot reporting that Laverne Cox addresses controversy over revelation that her ex was a MAGA Trump-supporting cop. That's right. Laverne Cox has had social media users doing a double take this week when she revealed these shocking details about her dating history in a video posted on Instagram and TikTok. In the video, Laverne Cox opened up about a romantic experience that even took her by surprise, saying, quotes, "My ex-boyfriend, when we met 5 years ago at the height of the pandemic, he was 26 and I was 48. He was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed MAGA Republican voter who is a New York City police officer." Now, while Cox shared that the two kept their political views out of the relationship, social media users immediately raised their eyebrow at the actress and LGBTQ advocate's confession. What do you think? I think that's oversharing, right? I don't see how anybody who works in media would think that they weren't going to experience an avalanche of response to that sort of disclosure, but look, you're welcome to disclose whatever you want, but just know that when you share stuff, people take liberty to respond. You share stuff on social media, don't be surprised when people respond. And so, there's some folks out there that will say, some people just talk too much. That's what Brother Andy is saying. He says sometimes people just talk too much. I don't know what the objective of sharing that was, but Laverne Cox, you're welcome to join us here on A More Perfect Union anytime to share what may not be obvious to so many of us, who were a bit surprised with this disclosure. All right. And so, look, here on A More Perfect Union, we are about counsel culture, not cancel culture. Right. So we ain't canceling anybody, because of who they're dating or not dating. But we do want to learn how that happened. Moving along in some exciting news, especially for folks that enjoy a little Ralph Lauren fashion. The Griot also reporting that Ralph Lauren's latest capsule collection pays tribute to Black summer style in Oak Bluffs. 3 years after Polo Ralph Lauren broke ground with a collection and collaboration with Spelman and Morehouse Colleges, the Legacy Fashion House has set its sight on the Vineyard on Thursday, tomorrow. In fact, Polo Ralph Lauren will release a new limited edition capsule collection honoring Oak Bluffs, the historic Black summer coastal enclave on the Massachusetts island of Martha's Vineyard, long known as a summer vacation spot for Black elites. Well, the line will be available globally on RalphLauren.com, and it blends the signature regal Ralph Lauren preppy aesthetic with the cultural richness of the Black nautical town. And so I'm looking forward to seeing it, and you might as well. And so be sure to check it out. When we come forward, I'm looking forward to being in conversation with Bishop Tolten, Bishop Joseph W. Tolten. He is quite a force. This is somebody who is a former advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Religion and Global Affairs. He is also founder of Interconnected Justice. It's a Pan-African advocacy organization that's building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda globally. When I first learned about his work, I had to meet him. And I think you want to meet him too. Bishop Joseph joins us when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk
Oh, these polymers aren't as flexible as batch K3.
Researcher Laurie is stretched thin.
Did you get the vulcanization analytics from V66? Oh, wait, are these rubber scores from last week?
She needs to hire new lab technicians so she can bounce back into her old self.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our matching platform lets you spend less time searching and more time connecting with candidates. Redeem your $75 credit at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and conditions apply.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency. On low Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. When it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests as we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really honored to welcome to the show Bishop Joseph W. Tolten. For those who may be less familiar, Bishop Tolten has quite the resume. He's a former advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Religion and Global Affairs. And these days, he's founder of Interconnected Justice. It's a Pan-African advocacy organization that's building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda globally. Welcome to the show, Bishop Joseph.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nee. It's such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you. And so let's set the table for our leaders, learners, and listeners that may be a little less familiar with the growing movement around Christian nationalism. Define what it is. Offer us an example of Christian nationalism in the public square, where we may not think of it that way, but that is indeed what it is.
Absolutely. At its most perverse and insidious, Christian nationalism believes that Christians and Christian theology should come to have full dominion over all of the levers of society that inform and produce and generates a society's culture, a society's economy, and its overarching political direction. This wing of the conservative religious world is in fact called dominionism. The seven mountains of society that they believe that Christians should dominate are law, media and entertainment, family, education, healthcare, and the government. And they deeply believe that Christians ought to be actually literally ruling over these distinct seven mountains in order to drive the kingdom of God literally being established here on the earth. So one example of Christian nationalism that's in the news at the moment, of course, is what's happening with the late night host that was just fired. This is really about a movement that wants to confine and dictate the manner in which we're able to speak even via the portals of entertainment. They understand exactly how influential the world of entertainment can be to shaping policy and culture and economics. This confining, this shutting down, this threatening of, that comes directly from a dominionist playbook. That is white Christian nationalism on steroids.
I really appreciate you putting a finer point on that. A lot of us are still reeling from the announcement that CBS Paramount is not just getting rid of Late Night with Steve Colbert. They're getting rid of the whole franchise. And we're talking about the Late Show that has been there for decades. They are completely divesting from that. I recently saw a post that Senator Elizabeth Warren had put up where it was a TikTok. She walked us through the timeline by which, Steve Colbert, had made a comment about CBS Paramount essentially capitulating to Trump. And just days later, CBS Paramount announces because of financial reasons, that they are ending the Late Show with Steve Colbert. We've also seen a number of other networks bend the knee, as they say, bend the knee to President Trump and the Trump administration. ABC News has settled a case with President Trump, providing $16 million to his presidential library. We know that CBS is currently in litigation with President Trump, where they may meet the same fate. We're seeing this move again and again and again. Why are these powerful networks capitulating? Why are they bending the knee? Why aren't they leading into a different play in response to the Trump administration and the MAGA movement? What's your guess?
It's been really interesting to watch this, particularly as someone whose secular career has been in the area of marketing for many years. In which case, I think many brands and the marketing world at large, to some degree, was able to convince particularly minority consumers that they were actually in the business of corporate social responsibility, and that they understood that there was a revenue bump that they would gain if they would participate in targeted marketing. The fact is that there was a moment in time, perhaps, in which they were vested in that strategy because it was a moneymaker for them. But at the end of the day, the king of the firm is profit. Besides my study in religion, I have an MBA, and I will never forget the day that I sat in my introductory economics class, and my professor, Willard, made that statement that the king of the firm is profit. And that is exactly what is driving this. The firm is not mitigated by its heart for people. The firm is not mitigated by its impetus to perhaps participate as a good corporate social citizen. Seeing the change in the horizon politically, you see corporations essentially following their deepest instinct, which is that of absolute greed. I think it's coupled by the fact that we live in the wake of Citizens United, where corporations understand now that they can pour unlimited dark money into campaigns, which gives them another lever of being able to drive a particular political agenda and be associated with particular candidates and actually be able to wash their fingerprints of that particular association.
While we've been on air, the Associated Press reporting that the appeals court finding Trump's efforts to end birthright citizenship unconstitutional. They're upholding a block. Again, the Associated Press is reporting that federal appeals court ruled today that President Trump's order seeking to end birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, affirming a lower court decision that blocked its enforcement nationwide. The ruling from the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, it comes after a push, was also blocked by a federal judge in New Hampshire and puts the issue one step closer to quickly becoming back before the U.S. Supreme Court. Bishop, talk to us about President Trump's quest to end birthright citizenship and how, if he's successful, how that might supercharge this Christian nationalist movement that is quickly changing the legal landscape for so many of us across the country.
When you consider the historicity of people of African descent in this country, we were considered to be 3/5 of a human being. We had to jump the broom because we didn't have the capacity to actually love, so therefore there was no necessity for us to participate in what would be a valid marriage. The dehumanization of Black people has been a cornerstone of the founding of this country and, in particular, our economic gain. The economics of this country and the idea that this country is the richest country on earth is built on the backs of slaves. We have to revisit the fact that the Industrial Revolution was ignited by the fact that there were more precise ways of exacting torture on Black bodies, which led to the overproduction of cotton picking. That cotton was then sold to Europe. That cotton was then turned into clothing. They bought it at a discounted rate because Americans weren't paying labor costs. And that was the cycle that started the Industrial Revolution. It was built on the backs of slaves. It is absolutely true that Jeffersonian democracy did not realize itself until Selma, when we had the right to vote, and on many levels, our full humanity, our full capacity to participate in the political process was actually established and sanctioned. The dehumanization and the discrediting of the humanity and the citizenship of people of African descent and the dismantling of the 14th Amendment is critical to the mission of white Christian nationalism, which must reestablish whiteness as the only social ideal that anyone would want to aspire to in order to be considered a viable American. So this idea of taking away birthright citizenship is deeply connected to the fact that it was put into place to, in fact, confer citizenship and full humanity on African Americans. This is a part of the white Christian nationalist playbook. If you want to undo the democracy that we live in, you've got to go back to the place where we became a democracy, and that was at Selma. If you are going to have a road to authoritarianism, you have got to blow up the political identity and the political strength of Black people. And what happened with the 14th Amendment and the establishment of birthright citizenship is core to that proposition.
You know, in other words, President Trump, the Trump administration, the MAGA movement, the Christian nationalist movement, they are playing for keeps. Earlier today, Bishop, I was visiting with my barber, Tone, and one of the things that one of the observations I was sharing with him is that I think part of what we're witnessing right now is a void of imagination. Dare I say, radical imagination?
Yes.
It seems to me, and I'm curious as to what your take is on this. It seems to me that Project 2025, for example, that Project Esther,
yes,
for example, that they represent the radical imagination of the MAGA movement, of the Christian nationalist movement, for folks who lean into white replacement theory, for people who very much believe in and practice white supremacy, right? This moment in time that we are all living in is an extension of some of the radical imagination that they have honed in recent years, in recent decades, with the support of the Koch brothers, with the support of philanthropists like Mr. Adelson, with the support of the Heritage Foundation, among others. And so when we come forward, I'm curious as to whether or not you share that critique. And if you don't, that's okay. I want to hear where your critique might be different and how you're working through this movement to counter the Christian nationalist agenda, how you are working to hone some radical imagination in the process. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Bishop Joseph Tolten when we come forward.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. All 5 soldiers shot at Fort Stewart in Georgia are in stable condition. Brigadier General John Lubis says the shooter, Sergeant Cornelius Radford, who is Black, was arrested after being subdued by fellow soldiers.
Sergeant Radford has been interviewed by the Army Criminal Investigation Division and is currently in pretrial confinement.
He used a personal handgun and has no combat history. Black St. Paul, Minnesota Mayor Meldon Carter says a malware attack hit the city's computer network. Emergency systems are working, but libraries and rec centers have no internet and online payments are down. And the Alabama home where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. planned key civil rights strategies has been moved to the Henry Ford Museum near Detroit. The relocation comes as Trump-era policies continue to spark concern over erasing race-related history. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Spending 2 hours staring at the back of someone's bumper isn't the best way to end your day. So Jack in the Box is giving you a bonus with their new Bonus Jack Combo. Fries, a drink, and a burger with your choice of 1, 2, or 3 patties, starting at just $4.49. Get so much more.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Venus Williams, at age 45, will be back on the tennis court Thursday morning in the first round of the Cincinnati Open. The Compton native will play Jessica Monero of Spain. Monero is 22. She wasn't even born when Venus turned pro in 1994 at age 14. Jen Pawal will be the first female umpire to work a Major League Baseball game. The 48-year-old Pawal will work the weekend series in Atlanta between the Braves and Miami Marlins. On Sunday, Pawal will be behind the plate calling balls and strikes. MLB is a little late with this milestone. The NBA started using female referees in 1997. The NFL used a female ref for the first time in 2015. Cleveland Browns coach Kevin Stefanski says Shedeur Sanders will be his starting quarterback Friday night in the Browns preseason opener against Carolina. Deion Sun is listed fourth on the depth chart among the Browns' 5 quarterbacks. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, yo, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Paul's new drone startup just lost its most genius computer scientist.
We just lost our best genius to some new genius who's got a genius new idea. I'm going to have to find a new genius, or 2 half geniuses, and fast.
He needs a computer scientist that can keep his startup from falling down.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me.
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey and really enjoying this conversation with Bishop Joseph W. Tolten. For those who are less familiar, he's a former advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Religion and Global Affairs. He is also the founder of Interconnected Justice. It's a Pan-African advocacy organization that's building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda globally. Boy, do we need it. Bishop Joseph, before the break, I was offering my take and my observation in terms of the radical imagination that we don't see nearly enough of in opposition to the MAGA agenda, in opposition to the Christian nationalist agenda. Do you see it the same way or a little bit different?
Dr. Nee, in the 1400s, the Pope Nicholas, issued a decree to the King of Portugal, who was King Alfonso. In this decree, he strongly asserted that the king had the right to seek out, vanquish, and to conquer all of those who were considered non-Christians, and that God had given him the right to politically and economically have dominion over these people who were not Christians. it is really important for us to understand that this set off the doctrine of discovery, which set off the transatlantic slave trade. Project 2025 is nothing but a modern day articulation of the doctrine of discovery. So I would actually suggest that there's nothing particularly imaginative about the MAGA strategy. In fact, it's old and it's very corrupt. Where I would agree with you is that the execution of this strategy is wild, and one could describe that wildness as being somewhat imaginative. But I think it's also important for us to also be clear that it is afraid and that it is desperate. But to the heart of the B clause of your question, we have not yet seen that kind of imaginative thinking coming from the left. And I think to some degree it is because the entity that would most naturally stand up in this moment to counter white Christian nationalism is the Black church at large. Now, the Black church is not monolithic, and it's certainly very, very diverse. But in terms of the Black church and its heart and soul around social justice, what we have seen since the civil rights movement is the development of the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel, I think, on many levels, has really helped to dissipate the social imperative that has always driven the Black church. That was certainly happening in the in the 1990s and into the early 2000s. Then when we move into the time of President Barack Obama, the civil rights issue of the day was LGBTQ concerns, and marriage equality was the issue of the day. The Black church at large could not find its footing around this issue. And I think ever since then, the Black church has struggled to maintain its position as not only the conscious voice of the nation, but also the consciousness of the Democratic Party. And so now we're in a moment where we need the Black church to stand up, and it is not yet emerging or rising, in part because it likes what it sees in much of white Christian nationalism, at least in terms of mega churches and televangelism, etc. Theologically, the church also fumbles with matters of reproductive justice and certainly LGBTQ rights. So I think that there's an opening and a void, and we're waiting for an entity to emerge. I deeply believe that in terms of organizing, it is time for queer people of faith who have an international perspective to stand up, because coming out of the marriage equality movement and even coming out of the LGBTQ movement more historically, it was African Americans who participated in the civil rights movement who brought that energy into the queer movement. And I think now that there is a base of people of faith who are queer, who really are committed to matters of social justice, that once again, it is a remnant that will emerge, that will really have the prophetic imagination to build transatlantic bridges and to create a global Black internationalist third civil rights movement that will kiss a third Pentecost.
Woo! You look, I can see why so many people have been telling me you got to talk to Bishop Tolten about the movement to counter Christian nationalist agenda. You are very well steeped in the historical context in which this movement is so terribly needed. Listen, recently, there were a number of African leaders that were at the White House meeting with President Trump. I had the opportunity to be in the room as a part of the press corps, and I heard some things, as I'm sure you and so many others heard some things that were hard to hear. We'll put it that way. You are quoted in the Griot calling out Trump's Africa summit and white supremacist bias. You said, quotes, he approaches Africa from that bias and with that perception that these are kind of barbaric, uncivilized leaders and nations. Tell me what you meant by that.
Let's go to the Washington Accord. This is an agreement that Trump has facilitated between Rwanda and the Congo. Yes, there's been a 30-year conflict that certainly needs to be addressed. But I think it's really important for us to be very, very clear. He is using this conflict because he desperately wants a Nobel Peace Prize. But ultimately, beyond the veneer of the fact that there will be refugee resettlement in the Eastern Horn of the Congo, yes, there will be a disengagement regarding the military conflict. And yes, to some degree, there'll be regional integration with regard to the ways in which some of the countries in East Africa participate in the mining of minerals. But more importantly, now American corporations will have full access to the cobalt and the diamond and the gold that is under the ground in the Congo. In fact, the head of Blackwater, as well as one of Trump's other major contributors, already have the rights to secure the mines that were being secured by M23 rebels and unfettered access to other mineral extraction possibilities. So I lift that up as an example in an answer to your question, in which he presents himself in a particular way, but underneath that veneer, let's be very clear. He has an opportunistic perspective as it relates to Africa. He believes that he can manipulate African leaders. He can connect with them around their strongman sensibilities, all for the purposes of driving economic domination as it relates to the continent.
What did you think of how the African leaders from Senegal, from Liberia, among some of the other countries that were there, did they hold their own? Were they in a precarious situation in the first place by showing up at the Trump White House? Did they get what they need in order to at least live to fight another day?
I think that they did extremely well in terms of how they were able to comport themselves. Africa at large is really trying to figure out what is the best strategy in dealing with Trump and his maneuverings. I think that a part of what is unfortunate is that what Trump is doing is he's speaking to the transactional nature of politics, which for many African leaders has a particular appeal. And so the needs of African people are now being sidelined. Again, if I go back to this deal in the Eastern Horn of Africa, there's no mention of human rights. There's no mention of the ways in which the Congolese people are now going to have access to the minerals in their own country to build a mass middle class. So I think that African leaders, one by one, are trying to figure out what is the right dance. My concern is that we don't have enough African leaders like Ramaphosa who actually not only have a backbone, but who are driven by principle and not just the possibilities of profit personally.
We know that another question I had posed to the president is related to the IRS. The IRS says that churches can now endorse political candidates, as reported by NPR. In a break with decades of tradition, the IRS says it will allow houses of worship to endorse candidates for political office without losing their tax-exempt status. There's, of course, some implication for this stateside, but the way I see it, there are also implications globally. Talk to us about any reticence that you have or any suspicions that you have about this recent decision by the IRS.
Again, this is right out of the Dominionist playbook. They have been itching for this change for many, many years. Their pulpits in many occasions and in many contexts are nothing more than political conventions. And so now that this line has not just been blurred, but obliterated, they can really come out of the closet in that for many on the far right, religion is really not about receiving the grace of God, but it is about driving an incredibly narrow political agenda that is undergirded by religious fervor, but not by Christian values. I am not only suspicious of this move, but I absolutely condemn it. It is transparently clear that this is about Trump wanting to give his base another opportunity to rile up, mobilize, drive, and in some cases expand the political operation of conservative religious churches.
I want to remind our leaders, learners, and listeners that since 1954, a provision in the tax code called the Johnson Amendment says that churches and other nonprofit orgs could lose their tax-exempt status if they participate in or intervene in any political campaign on behalf of any candidate for public office. And so clearly, this recent decision by the IRS flies in the face of what has been a provision in the tax code for nearly 70 years.
there's no question that that is the case. This reminds me of the Bob Jones University case, in which the Supreme Court said you will lose your tax-exempt status if you continue to operate using such racist policies. That's what actually set off the modern day religious right movement, the moral majority movement. It wasn't Roe v. Wade. They've hidden behind Roe v. Wade as their rallying cry. But the incentive to reorganize the religious right after the civil rights movement kind of theologically disorganized Confederate Christianity, that decision came from this idea that the races were going to be mixing. So this relationship between tax status, this relationship between the unrestricted use of money and funds is something that has always been precious and sensitive for the religious right. We saw it in the 1980s with that case with Bob Jones University, which was so historic and so important. And now we're seeing it again. This is not a U.S. Supreme Court decision, but a decision by the IRS, which I think we will live to regret.
When we come forward, I'm going to ask Bishop Joseph Tolten to stay with me just a little while longer. It's time for the quiet part out loud, and I certainly want us to learn a little bit more about Interconnected Justice, the organization that he founded. In addition, NBC News is reporting that Texas flood survivors offer a mixed review of FEMA as the agency awaits an uncertain future. What happened to Love Thy Neighbor? We're going to get Bishop's take on this story and more when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, also known as AD, a type of dementia that affects memory, thinking, and behavior, making everyday tasks challenging. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? There are things you can do to help reduce your risk for developing AD. Managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure is crucial. Staying physically active, maintaining social connections, eating a healthy diet, and keeping your mind engaged with activities like reading or puzzles can all contribute to brain health. It's also important to recognize some common signs and symptoms of early AD, such as forgetfulness that causes problems with everyday life, asking the same question a few times in a row, and difficulty concentrating on basic tasks. If you see these signs in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatallzearly.com. That's treatallzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390 and start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you, working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. The conversation is so good, I couldn't let him go. Bishop Joseph W. Tolten, the founder of Interconnected Justice, is here with us. He and so many of his colleagues are leading a movement to counter Christian nationalist agenda. I want you to square this for me, Bishop. NBC News reporting that Texas flood survivors are offering mixed reviews of FEMA as the agency itself is awaiting a pretty uncertain future. The response that the folks in Texas, at least, have had has ranged from fantastic to unhelpful and frustrating. Help me understand, how is it that, the current president, the current administration, seems to be the flavor of the year, really, for Christian nationalists. They don't seem to be critiquing this president or this White House in any sort of way. How is it that having an agency that is intended to support people in times of emergency, that is intended to do the work of loving thy neighbor, right? How is it that this administration can get away with that agency failing at its job and, Christian leaders and Christian nationalists looking the other way?
One of the core principles or ideas in Project 2025, which I think were somewhat underreported, is this notion that the state should be gutted of its duty and capacity to create a safety net and to establish and implement programs that would take care of the poor or that would help in emergency situations. The idea is that these necessities would be privatized. So this ultimately is about creating more economic opportunities for unregulated corporations to make just a ridiculous amount of money. So this idea of privatization is so very key to the dismantling of the state. I think it's also important for us to understand that what they propose is that the safety net should in fact be implemented by the church. Now, if the church is going to provide the services that SNAP provided or the food bank provided or that FEMA provided, that means that you're going to have to enter that spiritual space or be exposed to it to receive its services. You will then have to some degree, feel as if you have to adhere to the dogma and doctrine of that church. Now, let's go back to the IRS decision and your question about FEMA. If I have to now deal with a church that's doing what FEMA did, and that church has all the legal ability in the world to beat me over the head, not only with their conservative theology, but also with a particular political ideology, you can now see how these things actually really do come together. It is empowering corporate America and it is empowering the church, because both are vehicles to push forward a particular ideology that ultimately is all about making money and controlling and dominating the voice and the thinking of citizens.
Bishop Tolten, in our remaining minutes, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the work that you are leading with Interconnected Justice. For people who are less familiar, it is a Pan-African advocacy organization that is laser focused on building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda. So if you're out there and you're saying, okay, wait a minute, where's the opposition's Project 2025? Where's the opposition's Project Esther, right? Well, that is a part of what Bishop Tolten and others are working on. Talk to us about the Interconnected Justice Organization and how our leaders, learners, and listeners can tap in.
Absolutely. Interconnected Justice is a Pan-African network connecting people of African descent globally for collaborative action with regard to issues that are political, economic, and spiritual that we share in common. Our core program is called the Affirming Elders Council. And on December the 10th of last year, we had this wonderful moment in which we brought together clergy, civil society advocates, business leaders, and academics, as well as youth activists, LGBTQ activists, economic reform activists, particularly Gen Z folks like those in Kenya who are doing such important work, as well as womenist activists, into one ecosystem in which we, as people of African descent on the continent and in the diaspora, chose each other, chose to work together, chose to identify our common heritage and what we perceive to be our common destiny. It is so important that even before we get to the policy prescription, I believe that the organizing under the umbrella of Black internationalism is going to be key. I believe it is salvific as it relates to how we are going to press through this particular moment in time. The theopolitical antidote to white Christian nationalism for people of African descent is Black internationalism. We have to hold hands from Brazil to the United States, where we're dealing with matters of police brutality. In one country, it is the same as it is in the other. We have to make that one movement. We have to deal with matters of economic disenfranchisement that we see happening in our inner cities. It's deeply connected to what we see happening with regard to the extraction of minerals by Western countries in Africa. Black internationalism is the antidote to white Christian nationalism on a global level.
Our thanks to Bishop Joseph Tolten, who is the founder of Interconnected Justice. You might want to run over to that website and
icjustice.org. I'm sorry, the letter I, the letter C, justice.org. icjustice.org.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely have you back very, very, very soon. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing, and thanks to all of our leaders, learners, and listeners for tapping in. Our thanks to the Village helps us to produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer Brother Andy, our show producers Faraji, Art, and Journey. And to each and every one of you, all of our leaders, learners, and listeners, we curate this show every day with you in mind. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you so kindly, my brother.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump says he supports Black Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears in her run for Virginia governor, though he stopped short of a full endorsement. He called her race against Democrat Abigail Spanberger tougher than it should be and criticized Spanberger as a weak candidate. Earl-Sears has not responded, but Spanberger's team slammed her for backing Trump's policies.